Hi, I'm Sandy Galef, a member of the New York State Assembly, representing parts of northern Westchester and parts of Putnam County. And today we're going to talk about the importance of our historical societies and how they keep the history of our community alive. And I have two special guests with me. One is Jeff Canning, who is the secretary of the Van Cortlandtville Historical Society and former president, and also served on the Westchester County Historical Society board, and you are one of the historians for the town of Cortlandt, and I welcome you.
Thank you, Sandy.
It's great to have you here.
It's great to be here.
And Karen Smith is from Briarcliff and has been both secretary, vice president, and now president of the Briarcliff Manor Scarborough Historical Society. And you've also served on the Westchester Historical Society board and Westchester County. So, and I just asked you, you had met each other during that period of time.
Yes. And I've
there.
attended some of his meetings. They've been excellent.
Right. So you're both really trying to preserve our history. Karen, tell us a little bit about how the Briarcliff Manor Scarborough Historical Society started. When did it start, and how long have you been in existence? And so on?
It started in the flurry of the bicentennial of the country in 1976, and Bill Sharman was one of the early members and first president. He and his wife were the first in many things in our village of Briarcliff. And it has existed since then. It'll be 41 years this year, and it has waxed and waned in activity. I think we're in a rather busy time now, and it's a lot of fun.
That's great. And Jeff, how long has the Van Cortlandtville Historical Society been in existence?
Since 1921.
1921.
Yes, it was organized in the aftermath of World War I. Some of the local people wanted to honor the members of the Van Cortlandtville community who had served in World War I. Two of them, unfortunately, did not come back, a pair of brothers, actually, Roland and Stephen Donnelly. And the desire to honor them, led to A, the organization of the group, and, B, the erection of a memorial, on a piece of land on Oregon Road, just north of the city of Peekskill, that was formally dedicated in 1922. And, after a number of years of, rattling around in basements and people's living rooms and everything, in 1972, when this building, the original Van Cortlandtville Elementary School, was closed for the second time by the Lakeland Central
And where is that
District.
located? That's
This building is on 297 Locust Avenue in Cortland Manor. And it's still owned by the Lakeland School District. They no longer needed it as an active classroom, so some of our people went to them and said, could we use this as our headquarters, and in return, we will organize a program on local history as part of the fourth grade local history curriculum requirement. So this was a very good one hand washes the other relationship, and we've been in this building ever since.
And it really is just a really old schoolhouse with inside. Well, I was just there recently. You had an event, but you have actually a smaller space for lectures and so on. But the main part of it is really the old schoolroom that housed, I guess, first grade, second grade, third grade, right?
Originally,
long time.
Originally it was 1 through 8. Everybody was
Right.
in the same room, one room, one teacher, no aides, and the older kids helped the younger kids. That was the first incarnation. The second time, after World War II, Lakeland, couldn't find space fast enough to accommodate all the baby boomers, and somebody said, when we merged, didn't that old schoolhouse over on Locust Avenue come along as part of the deal? Somebody said, yes. You think we could put a couple of kindergarten classes in there on a temporary basis? Yes. So it reopened for its second life as a schoolroom in 1952, and temporary turned out to be 20 years. And after Lakeland finally brought everybody into modern school facilities in 1972, that's when the Historical Society moved in.
Right, but it does the reminders of the really old schoolhouse, which is great. And Karen, you've been, I know for a while, your historical society probably didn't really have a home, or it had a home
No,
and didn't have a home, and
It didn't
back
have
and
a
forth.
home.
Right,
It didn't have a home, and things as they were collected were put in wet basements or hot attics, and there undoubtedly was a tag when they were given, but over 41 years, some of those tags have gotten lost, but we are very lucky to have wonderful space now in the public library. Our library is a repurposed train station. I don't know that everyone knows that, but it was the Putnam line, and we had this train station that Walter Law built. It's wonderful, and but it came time to have something larger, and so a larger facility was planned, and there was space for us to be in that library, the extension of the library. And so we have some wonderful space, and we're lucky because, as you were saying, we have the security system of the library. We have the heat and hot water of the library and so on. So,
Right, and the temperature control, and
yes.
which is very good for historical preservation. You also have an upstairs in the library where you have, at least I've gone to a number of your, people coming to talk,
Right.
lecture, and so on. There was one recently about the 100, well, it was at both of yours, actually, the 150 years in memory of Lincoln being assassinated, and you both had very interesting speakers on that topic. So I guess that's what you do. You have to try to reach out and bring people into the community and the Historical Society to talk about history. And Jeff, you've been doing this for quite some time, I think.
Quite some time,
Right.
yes. It's actually a two-way street. We try to bring people in for site-based programs. We also try to reach out to the community as a whole and let them know, wonderful things happen here. In fact, one of our slogans, if I can get on a soapbox for a moment, is history didn't happen just all the way around the world hundreds of years ago. History also happened here, literally right in our own back and front yards. The whole Peekskill, Van Cortlandtville, North Cortland area is actually a microcosm of the Revolutionary War. And in a sense, that was really America's first Civil War, because we had brother against brother, father against son, neighbor against neighbor, the landowners against their own tenant farmers, and it was a real mess. But it was out of this cauldron that, something wonderful called the United States of America came to be. And this is all literally right in our own community. And, we've tried to mark as many of the sites as we can. Obviously, there are a lot more that we need to mark. Back in 2002, we reenacted a Revolutionary War skirmish, which is a lot of fun. We closed off the road and we had reenactors in British and American uniforms literally firing at each other back and forth across the road in front of Colonial Terrace and the Cortlandt Healthcare Center. And,
Bringing the modern day into play.
Well, we borrowed their front yards
Right, you borrowed the
for
front yards,
battlefield.
right.
And you needed to
Absolutely.
explain why you wanted this. I said it then, I'll say it again. It was just a great day for the community. We had about 500 people show up to see this and learn about a piece of local history that I'm sure most of them, just had no awareness of through no fault of their own. In addition to our programs and specials like the skirmish, we also publish a quarterly newsletter. That probably gets physically mailed or emailed to probably a couple hundred people at least, plus a number of neighboring historical societies, including Briarcliff.
Right.
And
Well, I notice actually a lot of interconnection now that's going on with our historical societies. I don't
Yes.
know whether it had always been that way,
No.
but I'm finding it more and more so.
Yeah, one of the sad things was everybody used to work in their own little silo, and then over time we've come to realize there are way too few history nuts, basically trying to do the same thing, which is preserve our history and share that story, with everybody else in the community. This is how we got to where we are, and a lot of times, instead of reinventing the wheel, double up with somebody else. For one thing, you'll get a bigger audience for your speaker,
Right.
And, then you can use your other programming slot for something else. And then you invite the other folks to come in with you. And over the past few years, we've developed a very nice working relationship between Van Cortlandtville and the Yorktown Historical Society. We've gone back and forth with our friends at the Peekskill Museum. And, we publicize your stuff, you publicize ours. Hopefully, those of us who don't mind making the trek will actually get down there and swell the audience a little bit. And then, it all works together to preserve the story and share it, and let people know what's out there.
Right. And Karen, I know you have a lot of speakers coming in, and they're always very interesting. And sometimes
Thank you.
It's about, some of your speakers are about Briarcliff, or maybe I remember there was one that even talked about the house across the street.
Oh, that was wonderful.
From the library, which was kind of fascinating, just focusing in on a family and a house.
It came about in the best way. I was there one Saturday afternoon a couple of years ago, and a grandmother and a grandson, who's a law student, came in, and they were on a roots tour. They live in Baltimore, but her grandfather had been in Briarcliff for 20 or 30 years, and she wanted her grandson to see Briarcliff. And so the starting place was the library, and then they got sent down to me. Well, did I learn so much, because that White House right across from the library was the home of Woodward Baldwin. He was one of Walter Law, the founder of our village's lawyers. He had created all kinds of diaries and collections that she had found in the attic. Everybody lucky enough, well, not everybody, but it's a wonderful thing if that can happen. And she and her grandson were writing a biography. And so she had first-person letters from her grandfather about his meeting Walter Law. He said they had roast chicken and asparagus grown on the place, champagne not grown on the place, and it was a wonderful day. And then she was able to tell me things about her grandfather's law practice vis-a-vis law and Mark Twain. So your ears just go like this. And when she came, and her daughter and grandson, made for a beautiful program.
Right.
We're still in touch.
Right. So attics,
Good
houses
places.
being sold, and one of your relatives passing away. I mean, what do people do when they find, if they find, you worry about everybody just throwing everything out, but if they find something, are historical societies able to deal, we're going to talk about some of the things we have here, but are you able to deal with both paper goods, old newspapers, or artifacts, or
You want
how
to
do you
see
deal
what
with
they
that?
have in that attic. You really do. And it might be that you can't take it in. We have two big farm scythes that are 6 feet tall, and the blade is about like that. And they're a little bit of a puzzle as to where and how to store. But they came from a barn. We know the property that where the barn was, and so it's special. And some things you keep and think about sometimes
Right.
for a little while. And maybe, we have received things and sent them on to other historical societies where they would perhaps be more appropriate. But
Right.
I don't think we ever throw anything away.
Right. And Jeff, you really don't have a place, so to speak, to store a lot, do you, with the Cortlandt Historical Society?
No, which is one of the problems that we have. But in the interest of making sure that something doesn't fall through the cracks, because unfortunately we lose stuff every day, anybody who finds anything that might remotely be interesting in the attic, in the basement, in Grandpa's barn, whatever, before you put it at the curb, please call somebody,
Right.
either one of us or whatever your local historical society or people might happen to be. My attitude is, don't throw it away. I'll be over. Take a look. If it's something, I can figure out a place for, either at the schoolhouse or someplace else, I will do everything I can to do it. It's pretty rare that anything goes to the curb from my
Right.
hands.
What is your relationship with the Peekskill Museum in that sense? Is that a place? I mean, remember Peekskill, Cortlandt were really one community.
Yes.
Maybe not way back then, but or I don't know when they were. I don't remember the years, but they really were one community. So you have a Cortlandt kind of historical society as you are, and although there's another one in Cortlandt too. For Plank area, I think
That's
there's-
not active anymore.
Oh, it's not active anymore. Okay, but you have the Peekskill
Yes.
Museum. So how do you dovetail with them?
Well, besides the fact that we're kindred spirits under the skin, and we go to their programs and they come
Right.
to ours. And John Curran, the former city historian, is a walking encyclopedia.
Right.
I mean,
He was one of your speakers, I think. Recently.
yes, we had him back in March talking about his new book on Peekskill streets. But when we get something that we either just don't have room for or that wouldn't be appropriate, case in point, somebody said, "Geez, could you guys use an old musket?" And we thought, "Yeah, great, a firearm in a classroom." I'm not so sure. Call John down at the museum, and they were
Right.
very happy to take it.
Right.
So that's the first place I generally think of as a possible landing place for something that I don't have room for, or that just doesn't fit in with what we do. And beyond that, it pretty much depends on what is the material, who might be in the market for this. Another good backup resource is the County Records Center.
I was just going to
Right.
Yes.
mention
Right.
that.
Yeah, would you like to say a few more
What
things
do
about
they have
those
there
fine
at
folks?
the Westchester County Records Center Archives, which is what in Elmsford area?
Right,
Yes.
Elmsford. Right. They have, I mean, I don't even know the extent of what they have, but they have a wonderful, safe and climate-controlled building, and it's quite large. I mean, it is not full. And they're holding some things of ours. And we had the opportunity to know about the Vanderlip book, the library, the book collection of Frank Vanderlip. And it was observed that they were deteriorating before everyone's eyes, and that they weren't being handled well, and they wouldn't last. So they have yet to find their final home, but we think we don't have enough space to keep them the way they need to, although that was offered to us. So I think that the proper place for them is the Westchester County Historical Society, where they will be well protected, and they'll be cataloged and will be a wonderful resource for many people.
And somebody like the Vanderlips are not just people that were important in the Barclay-Scarborough area. They were important on the county level, and actually the state.
Macy,
too.
county,
Yes, everywhere.
city, New
Right.
York City.
Yeah, so you
National
could be,
Bank.
You could be really anywhere. So you have brought, Karen, a group of different things. What are they?
What is the
What are they about?
relationship
What's the
among
relationship?
these things?
Is there a relationship here?
Well, yes, there is a relationship. Jeff's community began at revolutionary times and probably before. Briarcliff was kind of sleepy at the time of the revolution, and it was what they called neutral territory. And that meant that the only people that passed through there with any sort of business were people that they called skinners and cowboys. And skinners and cowboys were looters. And they raided the farms and took what they could without asking, and went off in the direction that the guy that was going to pay him the most. So Briarcliff area was very, very quiet until Walter Law retired from his business as a carpet mogul, and he began to buy land in 1890 in Briarcliff, the Briarcliff area. And in the next 10 years, he accumulated 4,000 acres, and he became the largest individual landowner in the county. His purpose was to establish a very sophisticated, scientifically oriented farm. And so these are representatives of Briarcliff Farms milk bottles, And this would be
Oh, we used to have milk bottles. I
a
remember
cream
those.
bottle. They say Briarcliff Farms here,
Right.
Briarcliff Farms. And the large milk pail was used by the men who milked the cows. And that wasn't enough of a project for him, developing these 4,000 acres. He also found a spring that was 200 feet deep. And he said, well, if one thing is good, two is better. And so he was bottling Briarcliff table water in an early look-alike bottle of Perrier.
Right.
And these were sold locally as well as in Manhattan, and some was sent to Connecticut. And the milk and cream was even sent to an exhibition in Paris where it won a wonderful award as being very pure, and it made a trip without any additives or anything, and so that's what these things are right here.
Right. That's great. He was quite a man. Quite a
was.
man. Right.
An early community planner and developer
Right.
with real foresight.
Right. Were there people, Jeff, maybe this is a question I should just ask you out of the blue. Were there any individual people in this area that did similar kind of things or not? That was such a magnet, just had amassed a lot of land. I don't know that there were. Probably each community is so different.
Yes, they are.
That's,
I mean, up where I am in Peekskill, Cortlandt, obviously we had the whole manor of Cortlandt, all 86,000 plus acres of it between the Hudson and Connecticut, with the exception of a little cutout in the Peekskill area that was called Rick's or Reich's Patent. That was never part of the manor. That was just a different group of landowners. And essentially, everybody in my neck of the woods pretty much started out big, and then it got subdivided and subdivided because the Dutch did not believe in the oldest son getting everything. Everybody got an even share.
okay.
Large families, a lot of kids.
Right.
Do the math. It doesn't take long before that
you're
salami
subdividing that big
tactic
land, right?
pretty much cuts it up. But
Uh-huh.
nothing in Peekskill, Cortlandt that I'm aware of that exactly matches Karen's story down at Briarcliff. As you said, every community is just so different.
Right, right. Do you have you all created, or has somebody done that for you, an historic book of the community? I think in Briarcliff, Mary Cheever had been an author. We lost her several years ago, but she had authored a book.
Yes, that
about
was for the
history.
centennial. That would be 2002. There was a couple of books before that, the 75th anniversary and the 50th anniversary.
So that when people are coming, because I've given her book to people that are new to the community, it just seems like, whether they read it or not, but it really does give the living history. And I know there are actually businesses out there that publish books on different communities.
Arcadia does so
right,
many of them.
Right,
Yes.
they do. Right. So how do you find your speakers? Are there people running around that are great authors that you research, or do they live here in the community, or who are they?
It's a little bit of everything, and as you say, there are some people you know of. Wouldn't it be great to have him or her come in as a speaker? Well, chances are, if they're that well known, they probably want a bigger honorarium than we could afford to pay.
Oh, that's a problem.
So-
Okay, right.
So that's a bit of a limitation, but beyond that, a lot of it is just keeping your ears and eyes open. Oh, here's a notice. Now, who'd Yorktown have last month? Might they be interested in coming over to us? Or, who's Briarcliff having? Might they be interesting? Or you just, look in, both the print media, the Examiner, the Journal News, or online websites like the Daily Voice, Patch. And a lot of times the ideas come from there. Occasionally, somebody at one of our meetings, either a member or just a visitor, will say, and have you people ever had so-and-so come in and talk to you? And, then Bob Foley, our program chairman, bless his furry little heart, he gets after him by phone and email and,
Right,
try to see if we can work something out. And interestingly enough, even with some of the limitations about people's schedules, the honoraria, we usually have a lot more possibilities in the pipeline than we actually have monthly slots to fill, which
that's
which
great,
is
yeah.
which is a nice problem to
That's
have.
a nice problem, right? Karen, similar problems?
We're doing
that you have?
something. No, it's really not a problem. You just kind of
Right.
keep your ear to the ground, and we have the advantage of being affiliated with the library, and we often co-sponsor events. So, and sometimes people have made themselves known. Local people have made themselves known to the library as having, you know, been a nut about something or another for all their lives and would like to give a program. And in fact, that's how we got the program on 105th anniversary of Lincoln's assassination. This man has devoted his life, John Murinelli.
We had him too.
And he was, and he's going to be up in at the Lincoln station in
Well, that's
Peekskill
not a surprise,
speaking.
because
No,
that's
not a
how
surprise
it's a
at
little
all.
pipeline here.
Right. And you know what he said at his speech is that he was in a library and he didn't like
Yes.
he didn't like history, he didn't like government, he didn't like any of that. But he started to read a book. I guess it was
Lincoln's, Sandberg's book on Lincoln.
on Lincoln, and he just got so fascinated. I thought that was a great story. It was a great story for historical societies, but also a great story for libraries and why libraries are important. So how do you exist financially? I mean, what you know, you have a certain type of maintenance that you have to have, and you know, is there you know, I know you have some small fundraisers. I think, Jeff, you have something coming up with fairly soon. Might be after the program is over, but how do you raise your funds?
Well, a lot of it is, you know, literally, you know, small potatoes, what a friend of mine referred to as nickels and dimes. We have the good fortune to be in a building that we don't have to pay rent for.
Oh, well, that's great.
Lakeland very generously lets us go in there in exchange for the programs we present that
Right.
engage Lakeland students, and also with whatever resources we have. You know, we try to take care of the building as best we can without bothering them. It's only when you get to the heavy duty stuff like the roof is falling apart, the furnace died, help. But
Right.
you know,
Right.
other than
So
that,
that's helpful.
Yeah, we do what we can. Beyond that, you know, we have, you know, annual membership dues. You know, we obviously we encourage donations. Glad
Absolutely.
glad to have them, and you know, we do have a small gift case where we sell things like, you know, the book Historic Van Cortlandtville, you know, and you know, some pens and pencils and some other historical type tchotchke.
Right.
You know, let's be honest about it.
Thanks.
This
Thanks,
is
Jeff.
not a humongous revenue stream,
Right.
but you know, it's a little bit here, a little
It's
bit
hard.
there, and somehow we keep the doors open and the bill collectors
Right,
away.
and I'm sorry, Karen, we've run out of time, but I know you have fundraisers and
Yes.
and you have a different arrangement with the
village.
So, but if anybody watching has any special interest, I hope, in history and being involved in their local historical society, we encourage them to call Jeff or to call Karen, or if they're listening from another place, to find out what their historical societies are doing, because history is
Absolutely.
important. We're all a part of history, and thank you both for being
Thank
here.
you.
If you have
Thank you
any
for having
questions
us.
at all, give me a call at 914-941-1111. Thanks so much for watching.